Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Immergence Show, where we talk about the latest and greatest in emerging tech and immersive experiences. Today, we're going to talk about one of the hottest topics, which is obviously AI. More specifically, there were some launches happening from Humane AI Pin to GPTs that we can use as personal stuff related to whether we want to manage a brand or business or just replicate what we're doing on a daily basis. So we're going to talk about all of this plus some other exciting updates and news, and look at the report from Roblox on fashion and beauty and self-expression. Talk about identities in digital experiences, and many more. So we're going to start with a quick random introduction so you know who we are. I am a creative technologist. I have been building retail tech businesses and with my co-founders, Philip and Noreen. And we are into enhancing the user experience and the brand and creator experience in this immersive world that are created with digital experiences. So these topics that we review and discuss are very related to what you're doing on a daily basis. And from our past experiences, we have very specific insights that we'll be sharing related to each news or update that we'll discuss. Philip is more of a technologist, and Noreen is also on the creative marketing and branding side of things. And she's also a PhD in sociology, and she's a cultural anthropologist as well. So we are excited to talk about the first launch, which is AI Pin by Humane. I'm going to give you a quick background if you haven't seen the news about it. Humane was founded by a couple of kind of ex-employees of Apple. One of them was a designer. He is a designer that worked with Apple for over 21 years. And he's been designing both hardware and software. And then, so he is now kind of chairman and president of the company, Humane. And their CEO was with Apple as a program manager, I believe, for about 8 years. So each are bringing their experience and insights and now competing with Apple. And what's interesting is that they're basically creating a device, or they have created their first product, which is this AI pin that kind of eliminates the need for having a phone with you at all times. It's a pin that you can attach to your clothes and or put it in your pocket, and basically it will be doing the calls. It will gather the information for you. You can talk to it like an assistant, and it can also record images and videos for you. So they have raised over $100 million. Obviously, for a hardware company that is being innovative, that is needed. And it's a kind of a category creator. I mean, wearable technology existed, but this is a different type. And what they have done is that they strategically partnered and even raised funding from certain partners in different categories. So they, for example, partnered with T-Mobile on the cellular system. They partnered with OpenAI on the AI brain of this technology, and many more. So with choosing one partner per category, they kind of, in my opinion, limited themselves. That might be just a starting point, and later on they expand their partners. I don't know how that would work, how they set up their legal structures of these partnerships, whether it's exclusive or not. But that's how they have succeeded to spend over 4 years building this first product that we will be discussing. So if you haven't seen the demo, or if you have seen it, we're going to quickly talk about what it does, so you can basically ask questions off of it and communicate with it like you have an assistant with you. So that's similar to like what you could do with Siri, iPhone, or any other Hey Google stuff that you've been used to, but they're removing the screen. And so what we're going to discuss more specifically is, first, who is the target audience for this product? And second, how would brands and creators going to partner with this or use this in the process of connecting with the users and users? So, Noreen, what are your thoughts on who is the target audience for this?
My thoughts, I would say that people who don't want to look at their screens as much, so I would say, like, so if I'm wearing this device, I can talk to it, and and it can see the things that I see. One of the interesting things that was said about it was it kind of is trying to predict what you want by being in the environment with you. I'm not sure how it actually does that, but it's that's interesting. And so if you're going out on an errand or you're doing something, it's there with you, and you're not stopping to look at the phone. So so I think it's a desire for people to be more present, and so I think that's kind of the modus behind it. And I think that, so the target demographic of who would want that is maybe somebody that just didn't want to feel as tied to the phone, maybe people who are on the phone all the time, or they maybe don't care about like social media or anything like that as much, because you can't see your inputs and outputs. It's participating with you rather than you like scrolling or looking. So it's kind of taking away some of that.
Right.
So,
Philip, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that it's been adopted, right? It's a new product category, and it's very niche. It kind of reminds me a lot of the Star Trek, tricorder and things like that. And also Samantha, from her. So we're starting to see some sci-fi things starting to appear, as these gadgets. But I think that as a new product category, ultimately will create new utilities, and people will find new functions for it. But I think the people that would probably most benefit from this now are people that are highly interactive, social environments, like managers, people in politics, or people that just basically needs to interact and communicate with a lot of people in a frequent way. So somebody like me that's more like technology, and that's in front of a computer for most of my day, and does most of my communication through text, or visuals or images, and that's more long form. My communications are more long form. That's not so much helpful right now. Even things like looking up information and all that, to have it at my fingertips. But who knows? As it expands its functionalities, maybe something like this could become more useful to somebody, people like me or others.
So what I see in terms of the target audience, I think the founders of this company, male in their 50s, that is pretty tech savvy and has their computer for their work, and just wants to interact with their friends and family. That's what I got from their demo. That could be a demographic that doesn't really need more screens. They actually need to have a computer because all the images, videos, and even pre training of the AI is done through the PC. So if you don't have a laptop or computer, that doesn't even work. So it's not designed for people who rely on their phone heavily and don't even have a laptop or computer. So it's a very niche audience. The second category that I see is the other co-founder, a female who is probably a mom and has probably teenage kids that she is basically concerned about the screen time and social media toxicity and stuff like that, and she wants to just be able to communicate with her kids, and doesn't necessarily want to give them a tool that will distract them or open them up to risks. So in that case, she has designed something that would work for her purpose. So I can see how that could be used. The limitations that I see is that for creators, visuals are very important. Whether you're a photographer, let's say they have the best camera, that is not helpful because you can't see what you're doing at the moment. And the other type of basically when we talk about immersive experiences or just like where the technology is going with connecting people to information, we talk about how more senses are better. It's interesting that they are removing a very important sense, which is the visual. And a lot of people are visual learners and visual communicators. So you're taking that away. That is interesting. And so I understand how people might not necessarily want to be absorbed by the screen, but it has its own use cases. The other challenge that we see is that you are kind of losing control in a sense that they said there's no app store. You don't need, they want to remove the hassle of you not having to look at different apps and make a decision. But at the same time, you're losing control over where you're getting your information. And you have to rely on that AI that is trained by them on that device. And however that has been trained and whatever those unique partnerships are, let's say in the fashion space or food space or any type of commerce or retail, they probably have very limited partnerships. And so let's say you want to buy a pair of pants, there is no marketplace option to show you, so you can choose. And you may argue that based on the demo example, the book that they showed, it's more designed around physical shopping versus virtual. And so this physical shopping, as Noreen mentioned, can be augmented and supported by this AI pin as an assistant or friend that you are kind of doubting between two items, and you say, which one do you think I should buy? Another interesting use case would be for kind of doing the assistant with the shopping in a sense that it can, kind of analyze the product analysis. Okay, it can scan the product with that camera, which you can also do with the phone, of course, but then it can tell you information more about the product, even better than a friend or assistant that could come with you to the store and say, based on the information that I see, this size might be fitting you better, or this item might be a better choice for you. So it can augment our decisions. So that's a way that I can see it would be helpful. And it basically is going to have some sort of built-in stylist or advisor for different type of categories of commerce, health, food, and everything. So
is it one thing, like if you're searching on your phone, nobody can see what you're searching, right? Because you're just like on your phone. Yes, if you're talking on your phone or if you're asking Siri or whatever, but it is kind of strange, like if you're in a store or something and saying, you know, is this good quality or whatever, and it's like, no, you know, like it's because like you does it work with an earpiece? Like how it seems like you're having a public conversation all the time too, and that would be very weird for me. I think. But maybe people will get used to it. Maybe it is like the Star Trek communicator and you're just talking and, you know,
yeah, I mean, Philip mentioned
or that movie Her, you know, where there was an AI assistant and the guy fell in love with it, and then, you know, I don't know. How do you feel?
Like privacy of your information? Like maybe you just want to get something done. Now you have to yell in the subway, like they call.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like how sensitive it is, or what that looks like, but it just seems a little.
I think that's where the hand gesture gets in.
But hand gesture cannot type your message.
It depends how skillful you are. Like there is this actual MIT device. I remember it was made by the MIT Media Lab, and it's one of the researchers. He created essentially his own one-handed keyboard, where it's just, you know, his whole, you know, hand.
But that's very
and
tricky.
he can type way faster than people can with two hands. So it's something else related to skill. Maybe in the future, maybe there is an interface you could utilize with one hand that just requires just more skill on our part, like a new way of learning to type, right? Everybody knows how to type today. Maybe in the future, maybe there's a new, you know, gesture.
Yeah, and the hand gesture part is a new addition to even VR headsets. Apple initiated it with their headset, and then now I think Oculus Meta is also following suit. So yes, the hand gesture is becoming more and more helpful into these new technologies, which is interesting. But yeah, so from the brand perspective, from a brand and retail perspective, Noreen, what do you think? Is there anything that brands can consider about this device? How can they get involved to use this to connect with the users?
I guess you could have QR codes, because again, it's like a camera on like they could, if you had it on as the necklace or the pin, and there was something, you know, they could detect, and then it could, I think maybe some sort of it wouldn't be fully augmented reality because you wouldn't see anything, but like if it could give a product description.
Well, they have a small projector where you can put your hands and see, but it's not really much. But yes, so brand retail or companies had the barcode previously on all products. Then next generation, as they call it, 2D barcode, or which is QR code, that is becoming more popular. It's not a new thing, but now it's becoming more adopted. So yes, brands continue communicating through these tags with the user, but now with these devices, the communication is more seamless, and so the user can get more information. So as soon as
you could tell you something, or tell you some story, or just, you could even do something fun. You could do some kind of, I don't know what, but some sort of fun brand activation where you're kind of like, the next part of the story is the pants that go with the blouse or something, you know, like you know, like you could be directed around to something, or, you know, so you could use it not necessarily like an immersive experience like on the internet, but you could make it an interactive experience in a retail location for anybody that happened to have that device. And I suppose if you were doing that, you could have it work with a phone too, you know, just so that you can get more, not just single early adopters, but the opportunity for interactive experiences in IRL, or eventually even like augmented reality or something, you know, it just ways to, or also sort of instructions. Like you could have, like if you were building with, you know, like let's say you're IKEA and you were having trouble building the billing
Yeah, again, it
bookkeeping.
could be embedded into the QR code.
Yeah. So some, I think there are ways that, but that's more about the QR code being innovative than the device.
Yeah, it has nothing to do really with the device, because you can do all of that again with the iPhone, with the phone too, with the smartphone. Yeah, and one other thought that I have before we read the comments. So anyone from our audience, please join us in this conversation. Feel free to share your thoughts. We're going to go through them as well. And thank you, Robert, for contributing. So my last thought about this, in terms of the brand, kind of collaboration, is seems like they're choosing single partners in per category. So if you are a big brand that can afford partnering with them, do that as soon as possible, because let's say Amazon or Walmart, one of them be the kind of preferred partner, then when the user is looking to shop something, that AI can recommend that. So that might be a big win for the early partners. And the idea, and then I want to kind of link it to ChatGPT. But before that, let's read our comments. So Robert said, interesting new wearable incarnation that will be very niche with early adopters early on, but will be a tough mass market play anytime soon. I agree. No question about your comments. Some creators' screens are extremely important. Unfortunately, they are also early adopters of new tech. Yes. I think this is a very tough kind of competition that they are going to. And in order to survive competing with smartphones, they basically, Humane decided to just do everything they can. Especially the hardware space is very, very challenging. I have been in the hardware space. I know exactly firsthand. It's one of the toughest markets to be innovative in. And if you want to have a product that can compete with Apple, you need to go and raise a lot of money. And I think they did what they could, and they chose preferred partners to raise and to succeed and get the support that they need. And maybe their future products will be less narrow and have more use cases and more broader audience.
And maybe there is, I do kind of philosophically at least think that it would be cool not to be everybody looking down all the time. And I think that
well, you can look up.
Who does that?
I sometimes do that. You just need to hold it up, or put a. There are so many ways you can, work on your posture and everything. But yes, I agree with that.
But I think also it's a good point to raise. Maybe also perception, usability perception. I remember when Google Glasses first came out, many years ago. There's the public backlash against that. It was a great example of a product that was way ahead of its time. And I wonder, with this, is what has changed, right, to be able to allow a product like this to potentially be successful, right? And what market segment is driving that? Is it Gen Z? That's that their perceptions have changed, because 10 years ago something like this definitely would not have been.
I think it's designed for Gen X. So you need to be tech savvy enough to design, to use the computer, to use something like this. But you also want to be not liking the social media and the screen time and all that. So I think Gen X is the target audience of them. But yes, it is an interesting, and there are other wearables. Smart watches have been around for some time, and they're already doing a lot of things that they're doing. And then there are the necklaces, like there is this AI necklace that can record everything we do every time, all day. But they said like this AI pin is not 24/7. You can activate it when you want to. So it has its pros and cons. Now, before we move on to the ChatGPT and OpenAI, I want to do a quick round of question. Will you guys pay $600 something to buy this when it's launched in a couple days? Noreen?
No.
Really?
I suppose for just curiosity, maybe. But and if you have like change, some cash to throw on the side or something, some disposable income, but as something of utility, no, I would rather buy a MacBook, the new MacBook that just came out. Honestly, that's more interested in me, in my opinion.
Well, I would definitely not buy it. I will be saving to buy the Apple Vision Pro. Thank you, Robert, for contributing in the comment section. Have a great rest of your day. And anyone else in our audience, if you have any thoughts or insights, feel free to comment in the chat, and we would love to share it with everyone else. So how I see this can be more useful is if you think about they are not having App Store, which is, from the business perspective, seems like a very wrong idea, because usually hardware companies realize you're putting all this effort to build the hardware to then sell the software and have a much broader revenue generation plan, like Peloton bike, like all these other tools that we see, even iPhone. The monetization comes with the software, not the hardware. Now they're saying, oh, we don't have App Store. That's very, very limited. So what I can think the alternative idea might be here is that they're already partnering with OpenAI. And OpenAI just had several announcements. One of those announcements was that you can have their GPTs, the most important one in our opinion. You can create your own GPTs, whether as a brand or as a user. And so now, and then you can put it into their, I don't know if they call it App Store or something. So basically, Canva created their own GPT. They demoed that. You can ask Canva to create a certain design. So if AI Pin of Humane is using OpenAI, then they have access to all these GPTs. So all the brands are gonna come in and create their own GPTs. So this advisor or AI assistant can access all these GPTs. This is somewhat like accessing an app store, which is not the app store by Humane, but it's an app store that is by OpenAI. What do you guys think about that? Does that make any sense?
So you would say, you would click the thing and say, I want to talk to this GPT?
Yeah, like Walmart's GPT. I want to be like, you don't want to physically go to Walmart, or you're physically in Walmart and then you want to basically get help.
Right, like customer service kind of thing,
but not customer service, like a store associate, like a store
right.
advisor. Hey, Walmart character AI, I'm looking for a bed with this size. What are my options?
Right.
So that's
well,
what
the other thing is you can hold stuff up too to the camera, like you can say, just
yeah,
this...
but that's like again, more inconvenient. But I'm talking about, if it doesn't have an app store, is this a substitute of the app store? Do you guys think that?
I don't know. I mean, do you use
maybe
store apps?
Well, that's what I think the use case. So that now let's take a step back and talk about the use cases of these GPTs. So what you're talking about, the GPTs are going to be is basically a brand or a person training AI to, based on their past information or past activities, how the future activities or tasks need to be done. So for a store, this means like training a human store associate. You teach them what has been done before. They will be trained by people who worked there before. They look at the documentation, they look at the instructions, and then they know what to do next. Same exact thing can be done to train these GPTs. So they're basically becoming the augmented assistants of each brand, which can be very helpful because even, let's talk about fashion more specifically. Brands have been creating this kind of personalized style recommendation, product recommendations in form of chatbots within the website for e-commerce purchase. They have been done by store associate in person for many years, obviously. And so when e-commerce, that element was missing, we still needed to give care and personalization, and that's where those tools came in. But they were mostly B2B technologies that were subscription based and expensive and all that. So now with these GPTs, and you didn't have much control, but now you can access with these OpenAI GPTs and create that for your brand. So that's the use case.
But I was trying to think about, you're saying, is it a substitute for an app store? And like, what do you do on, let's say, like the Target app, like you can search for stuff. Like, without it being visual, I think it's going to be very hard unless you're actually in the store or like, where do those options show up? What are my options? Unless you're at the store and you're holding an object, it seems very much different. And then, and then people use it for pricing or whatever. And actually, there was this
or it's to someone that doesn't care as much about visuals. Okay, is there a queen bed that fits in my room? And then like, yeah, sure, order it. I think for that,
you can do that with Alexa too, like add it to the grocery list. Yeah, so it's same. I see it more like a Siri or an Alexa. I don't necessarily see it like an app store.
Well, I think Siri or Alexa only have access to certain things. The reason I think every brand should have theirs is that those unique data about your products are handled by those companies. So Walmart knows their private brands, or any brand knows their products better than anybody else.
But if you train your stuff for voice search, because any brand, even small businesses, you can, if you're using Chrome or whatever, you can just like you can ask your website to be crawled when it's populating. You can ask it to be crawled by Alexa, and you can ask it to, and then everything about your brand will be readable. And I think many of these major companies already do that. I don't think small business people do it as much, but that's one of the things that when working with small businesses, I train people to do, because a couple years ago, voice search surpassed type search, especially on devices. So if you're not being crawled in that way, then you're not visible. It's just almost like having a website. So I think in this device, I don't know what they're using, but they're, what is the way to make sure that your information is in that? And so maybe it's a GPT, maybe you can do it without a GPT, you just, update, but because that's how it works with Alexa and Siri.
Well, the AI partner is OpenAI. So everything comes from OpenAI so far for Humane. But anyways, so talking about these GPTs, we talked about, so the brands can create their own. What about creators? How do you guys see creators can use these GPTs?
Well, I think one interesting use case is making a virtual version of yourself. I mean, some of these content creators, there's they're instead of talking to them, sometimes people are talking to the bots. You can have a bigger interaction with your fan base, or let's say, you know, I really like some influencer or pop star or something, and then they create a version of themselves, and then it feels like, you know, like, oh, I'm going shopping with Taylor Swift or whatever, you know. So their creators can increase the number of touch points that they can, you know, physically, you know, interact with more people than they would if they didn't, you know, have one. So I think that using it to, and then the other way is on the other side. So that would be outward facing. On the inward facing side, it might be training it to help make suggestions of new content, help make, you know, my content better, reduce the amount of time that I'm, you know, doing research or something like that, or whatever it is that I do, you know, because creator is a very broad term. But what's interesting about this new release is that it's not just the words. It integrates, you know, words and actions and things together, and so you really do more because it's all coming together.
Yeah, basically freeing up the creators from doing repetitive things or areas that they don't necessarily enjoy doing, and focusing on the, you know, kind of final touch up of the products or assets that AI can help create based on their previous work. Philip, you kind of coined the term of democratizing the intimacy with brands and creators. Can you share a little bit more on that?
Well, I think it's more like distributed intimacy.
Yeah.
But I think, like, I first asked myself the question of, like, why even have this? Why even have multiple GPTs? Why is one not enough? And I can think of technical reasons, but as well as personalities. As you know, we learn differently, and I'm sure Noreen can even expand more on this. But we learn differently depending on how we interact with other people, based on just on what languages is used. So, for example, if you have a GPT that's more orientated towards answering medical questions, right, then it might use certain vocabulary that is more conducive to that conversation and that is engaging in a different way. Same thing with, like, technical. If I'm asking it certain programming, you know, questions, using a interface that is more adept at that is more engaging in me, and
so personalizing the interaction with the user is important. And even like we talked about Grok, I think last week, that Grok is sounding more like Elon Musk. But do all the users want to have that type of tone of interaction? So they added whether you want it to be normal mode or fun. So yes, a personalization of the interactions are important. And I think there is some level of, like, yes, Noreen, you said you can have it crawl over all the information about a brand. But I think every business or brand wants to keep certain things in their control. So that's why they have their own store, in addition to selling on marketplaces. They want to still have certain control over certain interactions. So,
and I even say technical earlier, because even, you know, as you look at these LLMs, you know, how they work, you know, nitty gritty, they do have trade-offs between, you know, certain parameters, and a personality that, you know, forward facing on the surface seems like a personality. It could actually just be, you know, a trade-off, you know, where you have more, you know, for example, more specificity versus, you know, speed or breadth of something else. So this is, I think, where we're really, like, arts and tech is really merging to, you know, emerge as a utility, right? In terms of how we use it.
Sure. And the other quick thing I want to mention before we wrap this topic is that it's important to know that the information that we feed these GPTs, even if you are paying the subscription, unless you're an enterprise client, your data is going to be used to train and communicate with other users. So
or you're using a playground.
we need to be more mindful about that. Out of comfort and convenience or laziness, we usually prefer to just like give the information, do this for me, versus this is going to be, if you're talking sensitive information, whether it's personal or professional, like on the professional setting, I look at it more as an intern who hasn't signed NDA, or as an assistant who hasn't signed NDA, how much information I'm going to share with them. And so that is very important to be mindful of. Some enterprises had challenges with this, with their employees just passing on the information, the very private information of the company, to ChatGPT, and then the companies ended up banning it. Now, the overall idea that we are learning is that this product has been designed for enterprise clients. They want the big money. And so all the other options, the 3.5 or 4 that we're using free or with $20 a month, they are just some sort of marketing that are offered to us to use our data. And I'm not usually concerned about these things because I understand that it's in return you're going to get what you need. But when you are touching sensitive information, again, personal or professional, I want you guys to be mindful of that because this is not very clearly communicated. They only share the parts that they want to share in a way that is clear, but the other parts are not. With Google Bard, you can see that it says this information are being reviewed by human, and so anything you don't want this human to know, just don't share. So that's a very clear communication, and I like that. But the way OpenAI communicated is that, oh, we don't train on enterprise data, but you're not clear that everything else is being trained, and guys, be careful what you're sharing. So anyways, that's just a note for everyone to be mindful of, and hopefully this technologies become more democratized, so it's not so challenging for non-enterprise clients or users to use it. Anyways, so the other topic we wanted to talk about is Roblox released a report on kind of digital experiences and self-expression. Noreen, do you want to share some information on that front? I know you're more expert on that.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. Now they're talking about their user audience, but they did big research and talked to a bunch of the Gen Z people that use their product, and they said over half, 56%, now say that styling their avatar is more important than styling themselves in the physical world. And that's up from last year, which last year was at 42%. So people are very interested in the digital fashion and the importance of their avatar and these experiences.
And why do you think it's that, Noreen? Why do you think they care more about the digital self than the physical self?
I think that it is because of for identity reasons. So like people are making more of self-expression, and they can construct and express their identities through these platforms, right? So
maybe it's because they're spending more time on these digital environments, right?
Yeah, I think they're spending more time there, and I think that they almost feel like that's their you know,
Their true self.
Their true self, yeah, or self-expression and exploration and trying to connect,
Well, you can self-express in the physical space too, but has more limitations. You're probably, I read some of the part of the report that says like they will be less judged. So the fact that they can be who they want to be, and we have seen with the LGBTQ communities, they love gaming. They love it because they can be that character or type of self that matches more with their personality without worrying about the judgments of others and the looks and feels that others will have about their choices.
Right. And I think that, from the sociological perspective, the concept of social identity theory, it's how people categorize themselves. And we're seeing in Gen Z that there's a lot of subcultures, all these cores, like, cottagecore or dark academia or Barbiecore, like this idea of I'm part of this group, so, and then they're easily recognized and accepted because, okay, I've dressed my character, it fits with this. Their social identity is relative to the comparison of other social groups. So the idea of social categorization has just been amplified through social media. And in some way that's great because you can find people who like the same things as you and feel the same way. And you can easily recognize people that are in line with with what your identity is. Whereas before you might be like, you might be the odd person out. You might be the the weird kid at school or whatever, and so, or there's nobody else in your town that likes that particular band because you're into something else. And
so connecting to the like-minded people and communities is what's happening. And what's interesting is that this report is a lot about Gen Z, which I think is because Roblox focused on Gen Z and Alpha. But I think most of these are true also for gamers in general. Philip, you have been a gamer. Do you agree with that? Like when you see these stats and kind of assessments that Roblox has, do they all apply to any gamer, or do you think this is specific to Gen Z?
I think it's more specific.
Why?
I think gamers first of all has been a subculture basically as long as we're able to play multiplayer games over the internet. I remember, like, I'll probably consider like my generation a subculture within my generation, the first that really grew up with being internet first. Like I remember using Windows 95 and Windows 3.1 and AOL and all these things, and it being second nature, Usenet, and second nature to me before people even knew like how to use word processors. So like, and I was one of the first people to use laptops for taking notes, like back when I was in high school. So
you're saying that millennials and Gen Z, whoever has been into gaming, this applies to mostly, probably.
It is not necessarily, because it's even millennials didn't have this level of kind of technology utilization that I did. Like I only had a handful of like friends when I was in high school that we would do these things. We would play. We would program our own like network things so we could play games with each other online. It's just, even when Facebook first came out, we even commented like, why are we going to use these things? We've been using like forms or own other software or
so you basically, it was the limited
like that,
demographic or psychographic. Now it's been more democratized.
Yes.
To this younger generation, that now we can say among all this generation we're seeing a lot of this.
Yes, but it does kind of beg the question, within these first generations, what is the equivalent of what was my generation back in the day? Is there like a core within these Gen Zs that are more tech savvy in a different way, like how my generation was, from millennials that we don't know of? That means we're something else in the future. I think maybe that would be.
Well, I think that there are certainly going to be people who are more tech savvy, building their own things. Even in Roblox, there's people who use the avatar and get dressed up, and there's people who build the games and want.
It's less than 2%.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Less than 2% are actually.
Yeah, but actually like to use it for that part. So yes, there's always going to be this subset of the subset of the subset.
Right.
But there's always been, even pre-internet, like back when I was doing like punk rock things and stuff like that, you could tell based on what you were wearing, that this person is this, and and this person is that, like, or like you going into the high school cafeteria. It's just that the high school cafeteria mentality is kind of grown up and invaded all parts of the world in some way.
Yeah, maybe
and there's good and bad in it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So let's continue on the report. We're almost running out of time. So Nurin, what are the other interesting things about this report that got your attention?
I thought that how people are understanding brands and and how brands need to express themselves and interact. I mean, again, it's that the ability to have this information is fairly new, and and that people care about it and they want to interact with your brand, and
because they associate themselves to the brand so much, especially in this generation.
I mean, even more so, and I talk a lot about that kind of thing even on other social media, and how building a brand and community is so important, because it's taking control over something that's already existing, and and I talk about social markers, and so this is who I am is communicated through a series of brands, and that has been happening for a long time. Again, probably since the 1950s. They brands want that brand loyalty, like, oh, I drink Coors, or I drink Bud, or I drink this, and that means that I'm this type of person. And it used to be through advertisements and what shows, and these targeted demographics and psychographics. But in these cases, these young people are very committed, and some of the reasons why some of these big brands and the fashion brands want to go after it is, if you get them that loyal, then they're kind of a lifer customer. And so it's really important to consider.
Yeah, brand loyalty is so critical, and it was a big use case of Web3 for brands. Absolutely. And just quickly on the why behind it psychologically, is because people prefer the convenient way. And so if I associate myself with Starbucks, that's convenient. Knowing exactly where I'm getting my coffee every day is what the users want. They want to go to the autopilot and like not worry about choosing every day, what am I going to do? Same as setting up other routines in our lives. So from the consumer perspective, that's more from the convenience side. And then brands are using this psychological factor in their benefits, and building this brand loyalty. And quickly, part that I liked about the report that was very interesting was on the beauty side. You know, we talk about fashion a lot for self-expression, but you know, it's interesting to see that a lot of these Gen Zs are extremely also mindful of how they're designing, they're customizing their characters on the hair and makeup side. So from the builder's perspective, from the technology perspective, we need to be very mindful of how we're picking these avatars, these digital identities, to offer the maximum customization for these end users, because they're very picky. They're just not going to pick any basic template that just looks like anybody else.
You know, it's interesting as they get more realistic. Some are doing like, you know, pictures of yourself and it looks exactly like you, and you know, in your avatar, and then some, you know, are very kind of cute and whatever. And Roblox has an interesting way of approaching it. Is like you kind of get one assigned to you, and then you kind of have to earn or buy the things to customize it. So it's like a big part of their business is this customization. And you know, it's almost like a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing. Do people care about it because it's like one of the things that you're being pushed to do on that platform, or you know, do people care about it because they really like it?
Well, I don't think they're pushed to do. They're not pushed to do. It's just, how are you going to differentiate yourself among the crowd is what usually these kids care about. Like,
yeah.
Kathy Hackle was talking about how when her kids got their holiday gifts, the first thing they thought to do with that money was to buy new skins for their avatars in Roblox. Because that's a place they spend more of their time and meet their friends. That type of expression and identity matters so much to them, more than even what they were in the.
Do you think that COVID had something to do with that though too? Like, because then you couldn't physically meet. For a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And it like that's why we all started doing more of this type of calls and conversations. If it wasn't because of COVID, this, you know, metaverse and immersive experiences probably will take much longer to be adopted. So good or bad, it happened. But you know, this is why, going back to that AI pin conversation, I think engaging more senses is better than less, because people are preferring to work remotely. People are preferring to, you know, be engaged more digitally because of the convenience. People are spending more money on e-commerce shopping than ever before. So with all these considerations, why do we want to take the screens away? Why do we want to take a big visual component away from them? So anyways, that's kind of my thoughts on that. But we are almost getting to the end of our hour. It was a great conversation, and we will be continuing analyzing and reviewing. We didn't get to go through all the news. We'll continue next week. We also have a special guest coming up next week, which we will be announcing soon. And lots of great updates and news that we will review. Philip and Noreen, do you have any closing comments about everything we talked about?
Well, I'm excited to make my first GPT very soon. I think maybe ending with that. Are you going to make one? And we'd love to, if you're in the audience, share yours or share what you'd make it.
Yeah, people can choose to keep it private or public, but I really request everyone to be mindful of their information being used by OpenAI. Yes. That is very important. If you are working with these GPTs, please, piecemeal the information, remove your private, sensitive information, because it can be handed over to your competitors.
But at the same time, view it as an opportunity. You know, each time that these releases they come out, think of it as an opportunity for you to take what you've learned since the last iteration and apply it quickly, because it's almost a race.
Yeah,
right?
it is absolutely a race. Can't agree more. Thank you so much to our audience for joining us again. We're here every week on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. PST. Thank you for your attention, and please comment and connect with us, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.